Welcome. In this presentation, I'm going to follow up on some of the discussion from week 2. Some of what I am going to say will have bearing on what's coming up next. The issue that seemed to grip people's attention the most was this question of giving discretion to judges. That is, the question is, to what extent should judges be given leeway to bring their own moral judgments into particular questions? This is a difficult issue. I want to say something in general about how we have to go about arguing about this question. The key thing to remember is that we cannot decide the question based on one particular case. That is, we can always present some cases in which judges misuse their discretion. On the other hand, if we got rid of all judicial discretion, it's pretty clear that there will be some cases in which it would have been better to give some discretion. I think the clearest place to see this is in terms of sentencing guidelines. People rightly pointed out that giving judges some leeway to say, I think there's special circumstances, has led to abuses. But we then have to think, what would be the situation if we took away all discretion and had a rigid set of sentencing guidelines? It seems pretty clear that there's going to be some case where there's special circumstances that call for leniency that didn't make it into the sentencing guidelines. On the other end of things, there's going to be some cases where there's some special reason to give a harsher penalty that didn't make it, or where there's some things in there that normally would be a reason for being more lenient, but actually aren't in that particular case. So what do we do? Well, we can't just point to one case and say, see, things go wrong in this case if we look at it in that respect. In a way, there's an analogy to debates over healthcare. I would look at debates over healthcare, and I would see that both sides in a healthcare debate would say, if we go with this other person's plan, someone somewhere isn't going to get medical treatment that they need. And my response was always, yes, someone somewhere will not get medical treatment that they need. But that's true under any possible system. There are not enough resources in the world to provide everyone with every test and every treatment that might benefit them. We have to make some decisions, and we have to do the best we can. Right? And it's just a distraction, or at least sometimes it's a distraction, to focus on these particular cases. It's the same thing with the question of giving leeway to judges. No matter how careful we are with the sentencing guidelines, they won't be perfect. On the other hand, no matter how careful we are in our selection of judges and no matter how conscientious they are, there's going to be some point where a judge just has a blind spot or just has a bad day. So the question is, what's the right balance? And that's a difficult issue. We can't settle it just by pointing to particular cases. If we're going to argue that we should not give any leeway to judges, we have to have some strong reasons for believing that, in general, the giving them discretion is very dangerous. If we're going to say that it's safe to give it to them, we can't just show, hey, here's some cases where it turned out well. We have to give some reasons to think that it's safe overall. I want you to think about that as we go through the material for week 3. Why do I say that? Because some of our authors are going to point to advantages of trusting the legislature and advantages of trusting judges. When we get to the issue of whether we should have judicial review at all, that's very important. It's easy to latch on to one of the advantages or disadvantages on one side and say, well, that proves it. But we have to look at the balance. We have to explain why all the advantages on one side are enough to outweigh the disadvantages on that side and the advantages on the other side. So keep that in mind as you go through the readings and the presentations for week 3.